Now by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat from Rhode Island, and Senator Brian Schatz, Democrat from Hawaii. And Senator Whitehouse, I'll begin with you. This has been an issue that you have spent a lot of time on in your Senate career. Your reaction to this appointment?
Well, Chris, it's a sickening and a saddening choice. The individual who President-elect Trump has nominated for this position is completely in league with the fossil fuel industry. He does their bidding on every single occasion. He repeats their language verbatim. He organizes private meetings so that his public office can be put to work for this private special interest. It is the biggest and the meanest special interest in Washington, and this man's purpose in going to the EPA will be to corrupt that public organization so that it does the bidding of the regulated industry and doesn't serve the American people. It is a terrible choice.
Senator Schatz, there are two legacies of the president, this president, existing president, on climate that seem to me the most important. One is the Paris deal that John Kerry helped to negotiate. And I want to read you or play for you what Mr. Pruitt had to say about the Paris climate deal. Take a listen.
The agreement in Paris was just that, an agreement. It wasn't a treaty, so that he would not have to submit it to the U.S. Senate for ratification. And he brought that agreement back to the United States and said he was going to implement those provisions through the EPA and try to force upon the states state implementation plans that carried out the elimination of coal and the generation of electricity.
Senator Schatz, do you believe this appointment, if the Senate were to approve him, would imperil Paris?
We don't know yet, but this is certainly a four-alarm fire. This is really the worst-case scenario. There were a number of names talked about. None of them were the kinds of people that I would hope would be the administrator of EPA. But this is a person who isn't just on the wrong side of science, the wrong side of history, but he has made a profession out of climate denial. This is a person who has organized Republican attorneys general across the country to undermine the agency that he wants to lead. EPA enforces the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act, and this is a person who now wants to lead the EPA, who sued the federal government to try to disallow them from banning pollutants like smog, soot, arsenic, and mercury. This is a person who is not qualified to lead the EPA. This is a four-alarm fire for people who care about clean air and clean water.
Senator Whitehouse, to what Senator Schatz said, I mean, this is someone who sort of made his bones politically as one of the kind of lead warriors against the Clean Power Plan that was put through the EPA. That has been caught up in a lot of litigation by Republican attorneys general like Mr. Pruitt. What is the fate of that? I mean, that seems, Paris is one thing, but that seems like it is not long for this world, and if it's not long for this world, that's a real problem.
Well, I think if he is confirmed, Administrator Pruitt will find that he has some real problems trying to dismantle the Clean Power Plan. First, a lot of the states are going to go forward on their own. Second, the Supreme Court has already determined that carbon dioxide is a pollutant, so EPA is obliged to do something. And third, there are citizen suit provisions that can force EPA's hand. But the danger is that you have somebody who is an operative of the fossil fuel industry who is loyal only to the fossil fuel industry in this job. And in a million smaller ways, he can compromise that agency. He can drive the good and honorable people out of that agency. And what you have here is what I think is becoming a recurring theme in this Trump presidency, which is that the Koch brothers and their operatives are infiltrating the Trump presidency. He won it, and they are going to run it. And they are just inveterate climate deniers and a true menace.
Senator Schatz, how hard are you and your colleagues? There's two of you right now in my program. How hard are you going to fight?
This is absolutely the fight when it comes to climate change. You know, the Paris Climate Agreement, we think, will stay in force. The only question when it comes to the International Climate Change Agreement is whether or not the United States abdicates its role and abdicates its leadership. China wants us to abdicate our leadership so that they can be the global leader in this important space. But I am more confident on the Paris climate deal than I am about the Clean Power Plan and the ability for the EPA to administer the law. So we're going to fight, and I think there is an opportunity. You know, Sheldon and very hard over the last 4 years to find common ground and to find a number of Republican senators who would occasionally flirt with the truth. And we were successful in many, many instances. So really what we need is 4 or 5 Republican senators to put their country first, to put the next generation first, to put the planet first, and to set partisan politics aside and reject a climate denier. There are Republicans who would say that they are not climate deniers, but here's the litmus test for them. If you're not a climate denier, you cannot vote for this administrator of the EPA.
All right, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse and Brian Schatz, gentlemen, thank you both for joining me. I appreciate it.